health, happiness, and love. Today I'm going to take my inspiration from another TED talk, this one by an American-born woman of Indian heritage by the name of Anjali Kumar, and I'll put a link to the full video below. In this video, Anjali describes her own quest in search of God. It takes her in many directions to explore many different religions, many different groups, cults, and so on. Among those was a visit to a man who calls himself John of God down in Brazil. He's a self-proclaimed faith healer. It's worth looking him up in Wikipedia. He seems to be a pretty shady character, actually. But apparently when you visit him, you can take with you the wishes, 3 wishes apparently, in very genie-like style. You can take with you the wishes of other people that he would somehow, maybe, grant remotely. So Anjali, this TED speaker, went to visit him during this quest to find God, who apparently remains on the missing persons list, incidentally. Anyway, to cut a long story short, before she went on this trip, many people sent her emails expressing their wishes, and, so she claims, the vast majority of people asked for health for themselves and their families, a happiness, a deep, abiding happiness, not just a momentary, transitory feeling of joy, and love, especially in the sense of romantic love, of lifelong companionship. Now, in this particular talk, Anjali goes on to discuss how these 3 desires unite us, and please go on and listen to her talk. She admits, of course, that this is in no way a scientific study, but let's assume for the moment that it reflects a truth of some kind, a truth for this in no way statistically representative group of people, a truth for them at least. And this truth was that they all desired health, happiness, and love above all other things. Anjali draws her own conclusions from this, but I'm going to draw mine, and they may not be very palatable. People don't generally ask for something that they already have. Think about that for a moment. People don't ask for what they already have. Among this group of American people of various religious and cultural backgrounds, there is this in common, that they don't feel that they have health, happiness, and love, at least in the way or to the extent that they would like to have them. I've always been very lucky with my health. At least some luck is involved insofar as my health has its basis, to some extent at least, in the random configuration of genes that help to shape me. But I guess I've also lived a fairly healthy lifestyle. I don't smoke, I only drink occasionally, I have a reasonably healthy diet, I exercise regularly. So far, anyway, so good. No doubt the day will come when my health begins to fall apart. But at the moment at least, health is not a major concern for me. I'm sure though for many other people it is. Most of the people I know around me have some kind of health issue. And I certainly wouldn't want to be getting sick if I lived in the USA. I'm sure that the cost of healthcare in the USA adds considerably to the stress that an incident of illness or injury can bring into a person's life. Good health revealed itself as the #1 issue, the #1 wish among Anjali's email correspondence. Maybe happiness comes second because it is, to some extent at least, dependent on good health, a necessary but not sufficient condition for happiness. And happiness. It's apparently something that eludes many people. We're always looking for that thing, that person, that place, that job, that something that will trigger happiness. And yet, well, happiness will mean different things to different people. Or at least what triggers happiness amongst us will vary, even if the feeling itself is actually the same. Happiness, abiding happiness, has constantly eluded me. Apparently I'm not alone. Corny cliches like the key to finding happiness is to stop looking for it are not helpful, at least not for me. And the Buddhist admonition to let go of desire isn't particularly helpful either, at least for me. The Greek philosopher Epicurus called happiness the absence of pain. Sigmund Freud once wrote, "Much will be gained if we succeed in transforming your neurotic misery into ordinary unhappiness." He didn't set the bar very high. Happiness is so fragile. When we're happy, perhaps I shouldn't say we, I should say I. When I'm happy, I immediately begin to fear its loss. Fear of the future loss of our present happiness is an immediately self-fulfilling sentiment. Or is the absence of pain, as Epicurus suggested, really all we're seeking? That means that pain is the ever-present experience of many people, and Anjali's correspondence among them. Of course, this may not mean physical pain. It may mean emotional pain, or it may refer to that pervasive sense of anxiety that plagues us existentialists, and I suspect most Christians. And finally on this list, there's love. That too has largely eluded me, at least love in the romantic sense. This seems to be what people were wishing for, a lifelong companion, someone to share life's experiences with, life's ups and downs. Perhaps this reflects the loneliness that many people feel. I suspect that many of the correspondents who were seeking this were actually already married or in long-term relationships, but they still hadn't found what they were looking for. I think part of the problem here is that this kind of relationship has become so idealized, it's so mythologized in film and literature that actual reality can never measure up to the image. So we're never quite satisfied. We keep looking for something better. We search for our soulmate. Another very harmful myth, in my opinion. It's not something I look for any longer. Resignation, acceptance, possibly. In this case, maybe the Buddhists are right. Let go of desire, or at least let go of this illusion. All in all, it seems that discontent with life, a sense of not being fulfilled, may be quite widespread, much more so than we like to think. We try desperately to hide this from ourselves and from each other. We put on masks to live behind. We're constantly on a quest to find that thing which will finally bring us fulfillment, whether that's some kind of God or religious movement, whether it's a perfect job or the perfect relationship. Does all this sound just too gloomy? Am I being too Freudian? Well, it could be considered gloomy. It could be seen to add to our rumbling depression. However, at the moment, I experience this lack of fulfillment alone. I think there's something wrong with me, that I'm the odd one out. Everyone else is fine. Why aren't I? Knowing that many of us are actually not fine is quite comforting. I don't feel so alone. There's nothing necessarily wrong with me in particular. This is just the human experience, the human condition. Hiding this from each other just makes it harder. We're constantly surprised when someone falls apart because they seem to have it all together. They seem to be okay. They seem to be fine. And then suddenly one day they crash. If we could just admit to each other how close we all are, in fact, to falling apart, then maybe these catastrophic collapses or explosive outbreaks would occur less frequently. Maybe we could find ways to release the steam, the pressure, a little more slowly. Maybe you actually are happy and fulfilled. Well, if so, stop oppressing me with your infernal happiness. But for those of you who, like me, and the majority of Anjali's correspondents, struggle to find health and happiness and love in life, knowing that we're not alone in this can be quite liberating.